All right, Shalom, Yasharala Shalom. It's the brother Ash Ibar coming back. I want to give all praises to the Most High. Yahawah, Bahasham, Yahawashi. Yahawah being the name of the God of Israel. Bahasham meaning in the name. And Yahawashi being the name of his only begotten son, the savior of the nation of Yasharala. And basically in today's video, what I really want to do is just talk about why people try to bastardize the image of the Israelites according to the Bible. You know, because we got a lot of people coming at us on all fronts. And that's prophecy. That's biblical prophecy, because at the end of the day, the spirit of Satan and the spirit of the dark forces of this world obviously have to keep spreading lies to keep the people who are meant to get the knowledge from getting the proper understanding. You know, just this week alone, there was a Jewish rabbi who said that according to the Torah, there's no way that you can tell and show that so-called black people were the true Jews according to the Bible. You know, you got the Azahnaki Jews, the people of mainstream media, obviously saying that we're, you know, spewing lies, the Christian church. And then even on Twitter, a lot of Jakes and even a lot of Hamites, people who just call themselves black, a lot of Jakes who just call themselves black, who try to group all black people as one. And that's a lie. That's a falsehood. When you actually read the Bible, you're able to read and understand that not all so-called black people come from the line of Ham. In fact, many of the melanated people, the darker skinned people, not only come from the line of Ham, but also the line of Japheth, and more importantly, the line of Shem, right? Which is the line that Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob came through. And today, what I want to do is I want to prove it. Now, first things first, I want to go to the book of 2 Timothy, chapter 2 and 15. It says, "Study to show yourself approved unto the Most High, a workman that needeth not to be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth. But shun profane and vain babblings, for they will increase unto more ungodliness." And that is what inspired this lesson, because all y'all brothers, man, y'all sisters as well, but y'all brothers should be workmen according to this Bible. This should be your lover, your one true lover. The way that y'all look and y'all adore a lot of these women in the world, man, y'all need to be looking at this Bible and adoring it, because essentially these are the words that the Most High stipulated unto his nation. So it's our duty, it's our calling as men, as spiritual men, Lord willing, we be men of the Most High, to be able to break down his word, because this is the most bastardized Bible, the most bastardized book in the history of humankind. Again, everybody likes to claim this Bible, but most people, the vast majority of people, can't understand it. So the Most High himself told you to study to show yourself approved. You never want to slack on the job, because when the Most High sees that you slacking on the job or you're being wicked, he's going to allow your knowledge to become perverted and allow you to fall in all type of false doctrines. And one of the aspects of a false doctrine that I had seen, it's some dude I seen on my Twitter account, but he basically, somebody asked him a question of who are the black Hebrew Israelites? And he called the black Hebrew Israelites Kemetic Israelites. Yeah, he called us Kemetic Israelites, which makes no sense at all. And that's why I wanted to actually break this down. Because when you actually understand real history, when you actually open the Bible and correspond the names of the Bible and the places of the Bible with modern times, there's no way that you could be a Kemetic Israelite. Because essentially, Kemeticism and the people of Kemet are the people who descend from Ham, which is where you get a lot of people who say, I'm African. You know, you see the movie The Black Panther, and a lot of people bring that narrative where you got that big ass plate in your lip. You know, the darker skin tone people, predominantly in Africa, they sit here and say that they are the Hamites. But a lot of you Negroes in modern time America, you proclaim to be Hamites as well, which the vast majority of y'all aren't Hamites whatsoever. Now, real quick, before I get into this lesson, I also want to get the book of Luke chapter 12, because the reason why it's important to identify the true appearance of what the Israelites were in the ancient times is because everything starts to make sense. Everything starts to come together. Because even when I was a little boy, I always wondered why, when I would read history books, we would have 2 chapters devoted to so-called black people. We talk about how you had 1 or 2 nations, the Zulu, and whatever other BS tribes that they had, BS empires that they had. But then they would talk about how you got into slavery, you got transported to America. It was a sad atrocity, but now Martin Luther King came and he let y'all be able to eat fried chicken with your oppressors. And I'm just making fun of it. But essentially, outside of the civil rights movement, outside of Jim Crow, outside of the freeing of the slaves and the slave trade, there's no actual history of what happened before. But when you look at every other nation on earth, the vast majority of them can pinpoint throughout time the kingdoms and the empires that their people had. But why is it that we didn't? Because at the end of the day, the truth must be hid from the vast majority of people on earth. So I want to get this. This is Luke chapter 12, verse 2. It says, "For there is nothing covered that shall not be revealed, neither hid that shall not be known. Therefore, whatsoever you have spoken in darkness shall be heard in the light, and that which you have spoken in the ear in closets shall be proclaimed upon the housetops." And that's Yahawashi HaMashiach speaking, letting you know that everything that happened in the dark, whether it be your actions, whether it be your dark works, you being a worker of iniquity, you spreading lies, people misconstruing the truth of the Bible, and anything in the world that actually helps support truth, eventually at a certain time it will be revealed. Let's actually go to the book of Daniel, and we'll go to chapter 12, because that's another prophecy that will be fulfilled in this time. So this is the book of Daniel, chapter 12, and I'll go down to verse 4. It says, "But you, O Daniel, shut up the words and seal the book, even to the time of the end. Many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall be increased." And that was symbolic for Daniel being a prophet of the Lord, obviously speaking his words and professing it to the people at that time. But essentially what the Most High was using that for is to analogize the fact that the words of the Bible would be sealed, would be shut off and cut away from many people at different periods and times. And this time is no different. That's why when it says that many will run to and fro, meaning many will search after the knowledge. Just like people search after new lands, you would have explorers in the ancient world, Columbus, etc., etc. What would they do? They would search the four corners of the earth for new land, for new gems, for new rubies, for new places that they could claim as their own. Well, in this time, we already know the vast majority of the discoverable world, but we don't know the vast majority of the discoverable knowledge. So we're running to and fro across the four corners of the earth through the internet to be able to actually learn what true history is, compared to the false narrative that the people of this earth, and predominantly the so-called white man, the Edomites have lied to us and falsified to us, right? So it says, "And knowledge shall be increased." So in this time, we're in an age of information. We're in the age of knowledge. So what the Most High is allowing is he is allowing the proper waters, the waters of his own cistern, to come and be poured upon all flesh, but predominantly and mainly to be poured upon his nation of people. So that way they can return unto him and understand who they really are. Because as Chronicles of Judah would say in a lot of his videos, it's great power when you are able to profess and proclaim that you are the Most High's chosen nation. When you can sit here and back up and give proper evidence that you are of the nation of Israel, right? That you are an Israelite, that you are the royal seed, a lot of people start to look at you different, because it's all subconscious, it's all super conscious, it's all spiritual. So when you can understand that you're not at the bottom of the bottom, or even if you're at the bottom, you used to be at the top of the top, again, your mindset changes, which is why I oftentimes rehash that in videos, and many other brothers rehash that in their videos. You see what I mean? So you have to understand that. And also one of the other reasons why you have to be able to understand the truth about the Bible and the truth about this world is so that way you can understand why you're in the position that you're in. Let's go to the book of Jeremiah chapter 2 verse 11. It says, "Has a nation changed their gods, which are yet no gods? But my people have changed their glory for that which does not profit. Be astonished, O you heavens, at this, and be horribly afraid. Be ye very desolate, saith Yahawah. For my people have committed two evils. They have forsaken me, the fountain of living waters, and hewn them out cisterns, broken cisterns that can hold no water." And that was symbolic for the nation of Israel changing and perverting the image of their God, which was a spirit, which you couldn't form into an idol, and try to misproclaim him as who? And this is blasphemy, obviously, so I'm not calling the Most High this, but many of our forefathers thought that the Heavenly Father was Baal. They thought he was Molech. They thought that he had a wife who was the queen of heaven. And they started to worship after these false gods, even though the Most High sent mediators to try to speak and try to get them to repent and turn from their wrongdoings. Because the most wicked thing that you could ever do is worship a false god. Like the vast majority of people on earth right now, they're following after Christmas. That is the worst thing that you could do to the Heavenly Father, because Christmas has nothing to do with anybody in the Bible. Christmas has to do with false gods, aka Tammuz Day, Tammuzmas. You see what I mean? So the reason why you have to be able to study to understand what happened to your ancient forefathers is so again you can avoid the things that created our downfall and allowed us to come into slavery in a foreign land. And also let's go to the book of Isaiah chapter 5. This is the book of Isaiah chapter 5 verse 13. It says, therefore my people are gone into captivity because they have no knowledge, and their honorable men are famished, and their multitude dried up with thirst. So essentially the Most High told his people, the reason why I sent you into slavery is because you have no knowledge. Now, were the Israelites stupid? I mean, yeah, the Most High calls us sottish at times. The Most High calls us stubborn and stiff-necked. So in a certain sense, we are kind of dumb because we're hard-headed. And anybody who's hard-headed and doesn't want to listen, you're a fool in the eyes of the Most High. But essentially what the Most High was trying to let you know, the reason why you had no knowledge is because you forsook the ways of the book that he literally gave you and gave you a blueprint. The Most High literally laid it up. He gave you a grand avenue to the kingdom, but y'all wanted to go your own way, right? Y'all wanted to be led astray, right? Y'all wanted to follow after the words of man, follow after the words of your own mind, your own imaginations, comparing to following the word, the true pure language of what the Most High stipulated to you throughout time. You see what I mean? So essentially, the vast majority of our people are gone into captivity because they have no knowledge. And that goes back into the book of Hosea chapter 4 verse 6, where the Most High also stipulated to the northern kingdom, and he said, my people are destroyed for a lack of knowledge, because you have rejected knowledge. Knowledge of what? His word, his statutes, his commandments, going in the right way, who the Most High is and what he requires of you. He will reject thee. And that also takes me into, let's actually go to the book of Hosea. And we'll go to chapter 3, verse 4. So this is Hosea chapter 3, verse 4. It says, for the children of Israel shall abide many days without a king, without a prince, and without a sacrifice, and without an image, and without an ephod, and without teraphim. And long story short, what that verse is speaking of, it's also speaking of the northern kingdom and how the Most High would essentially banish them away from their lands, and they would have no connection to the Most High. They would have no prophet. They would have no high priest. They would have no king. They would have no ruler on their throne. But also we're speaking of the nation of Israel as a whole. We would abide without a king. When a lot of y'all go to Jamaica, a lot of y'all go to Haiti, y'all look at these men and they claim to be presidents and prime ministers, but they're just pawns, bro. Why do you think when a Barack Obama was elected president and he made all these promises about how he was going to restore the black community and help the black community, he never did a damn thing to help y'all, but he only lied, he only manipulated y'all, he sold y'all a dream, and essentially he promoted the alphabet community, and he allowed a lot of those perverse mindsets into your homes, into your culture, right? Because again, Barack Obama is not a man of the so-called black man. Martin Luther King is not a man of the so-called black man. Jesse Jackson is not a man for the so-called black man. None of these leaders, none of these politicians, none of these actors, none of these athletes are men of the people. They are pawns for the so-called white man, for the Edomites, because at the end of the day, money is their God. So they're going to do whatever they can to fund their lifestyle, even if it means destroying their own people. That's why the scripture, if we go back to Isaiah, it said that the people all die of thirst because they have no knowledge. You see what I'm trying to explain to you? So when you start to understand why knowledge is important, why your identity is important, why believing in the true understanding of the Bible is important, then you can understand what the Most High requires of you and why you have to abide by him. So basically, that's the pretext for this whole lesson. Now, getting into the aspect of the identity of the Israelites. Why do so many different groups claim to be Israel? Because there will be a point in time in history where the nation of Israel will lose its identity. Let's go to the book of Psalms chapter 83. So this is Psalms chapter 83 and verse 3. It says, I read verse 2, it says, for lo, your enemies make a tumult, and they that hate thee have lifted up the head. They have taken crafty counsel against your people and consulted against your hidden ones. They have said, come and let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance. And a lot of people in the Christian church think that that's talking about when the nation of Israel, the modern day land, the modern day country of Israel, the Zionist Israel is going to be, there's going to be a confederacy of Arabian nations like Iran, like Afghanistan, Pakistan, Syria, that they're going to come against the land of Israel. That's not what that's talking about at all. And the reason why they can't understand that is because this book is not meant for them. They were not given the understanding of the prophecies of what the Most High stipulated to his chosen nation. What that was actually talking about is that throughout history, there was going to be a point in time where the nation of Israel was going to forget who they were completely. And that's why the so-called black man of the captivity, many of the Aboriginal Afro-Hispanic people of the captivity, why a lot of y'all don't really understand who you are, and you're giving false names like black, like Negro, things like that, but you don't really understand where you truly descend from. The Chinese man knows where he descends from for the most part. The Indian man, I'm talking about East Indian man, knows where he descends from. The Arabian or the Ishmaelite knows where he descends from. And Esau proclaims to know where he descends from, even though the vast majority of them don't understand it, but their top-ranking people do. But you don't. And that's why a lot of y'all be calling yourself a Hamite. Y'all fall for these dudes on Twitter. Y'all fall for these damn pages on YouTube telling you that you're a Hamite. You go to the studio, you go to the movie theater, and you think that Black Panther is talking about you when it's really not. And you look like a fool, and you look foolish because they essentially cut you off from understanding who you really were as a people, right? And the reason why that happened is because this world that we live in is given into the hands of the wicked. Now, many people like to acclaim that to Satan, which is true. The spirit of Satan does constantly work against the nation of Israel. But there's a group of people that Satan oftentimes works through. And many people, we all understand him, at least most Jakes understand him to be the so-called white man. Now, why is that? I'm going to break it down. This is Job chapter 9, verse 24. It says, the earth is given into the hand of the wicked. Now, when we go back to the book of Genesis, what was the blessing that Isaac gave unto Esau after Jacob got the original birthright? Well, he gave the blessing to Esau that he will rule the earth. He would take the fatness of the earth and the dwelling places of the earth, but it would be in the end times. Now, Esau, he predominantly ruled the vast majority of the earth with the Macedonians, which was the quote-unquote Greek Empire, which carried over to the Roman Empire. But now in the later times, this is the time period that Esau is ruling again. If you go back to, I think it's 2nd Ezra chapter 9 and 6, or 2nd Ezra 6 and 9, one of those two, it speaks about how Esau is the end of the world, and they will rule at the end of the world. But one thing that a lot of brothers start to learn and understand about history is the second half of this verse. So I'm going to read it again. It says, the earth is given into the hand of the wicked. He covereth the face of the judges thereof. If not, where and who is he? So essentially, one of the key traits of a wicked man, of a wicked ruler, would be that he would cover the faces of a judge. And essentially, a judge is the people who are given the proper understanding of the Bible and who are meant to judge and rule over the nations, right? So when we read, I'm going to tell you what the cover of the face, the definition was. I looked it up before I did this lesson. It says, a wicked man by his power corrupts the officers of justice and blinds their eyes so that they cannot tell the truth from a falsehood. And that's why in this time, when we start to understand and look at many medieval images of Christ, right, that he was a so-called black man. When we start to look back and see that during the time of Adam was a so-called black man. When we see that David had a ruddy appearance, he was a so-called black man. That the Most High himself had characteristics aligned unto a so-called black man. But why is it that throughout history they whitewashed a lot of the images of the ancient world, and in this modern time is because they tried to lie to tell you that you were of not a different appearance, and that the true people of the Bible, they were actually the image of a so-called black man. So essentially there's a wicked group of people who whitewashed the vast majority of statues. I mean, you can look it up. Many ancient figures had noses that used to be bigger like mine, and they were cut off. Their lips, the size of their lips were taken, and their skin was pigmented to lose a lot of the pigmentation to make them appear as if they are a so-called white man. All y'all got to do is Google, look up the image of black Jesus, ancient images or medieval images of Jesus, right? Black Jesus. And you'll see many of the pictures that are in the Catholic Church that they whitewashed. Actually, when you look at it, it depicts a so-called black man, right? Because during the medieval times, during the times after Imperial Rome fell, the vast majority of people in Europe who were ruling were many of them were our descendants. So when you start to do research and you start to understand these things, it all starts to click. But a lot of people watching me on this video, people who may walk by, people who like to remain ignorant to the truth, they like to sit here and say, okay, you just basically saying things and all this, but I want you to really show me in the Bible where it shows and it depicts the image of a so-called black man. Now, I know a lot of y'all like to go to Revelation 1. Some of y'all brothers like to go to Daniel. some of y'all like to go to the image of David being ruddy, but the main way you can understand the image of the Israelites from the beginning is with common sense, right? So shout out to the brother Chronicles of Jude. I was watching one of his old videos, and he pointed this out, and then me and the brothers yesterday, we kind of did some brainstorming, and we started to realize it was right in our face the whole time. So let's go to the book of Genesis chapter 42. And what we're going to do is we're going to get the understanding of Joseph, right? Because for those of y'all brothers who read the Bible, even if you were in a Christian church, you understand the story of Joseph is that his brothers sold him into slavery. And he went into what land? He went into the land of Egypt, a.k.a. the land of Ham, right? Now, I'm going to ask y'all brothers a very simple question. Throughout conventional history, what do so-called Egyptians, not even so-called because that's where they're from, what do Egyptians typically look like when it comes to their skin tone, right? A lot of them is black. Some of them y'all call them purple. You know, some of them, they not as dark as my hoodie right here. They're a little bit lighter, but they're very dark-skinned people. Now I'm gonna ask y'all a question. What does conventional history teach you that the so-called Jews look like? A Caucasian man, right? With a small hat on top, a long beard. He got the Schmitzvah, he got the star Molech or whatever he calls it on his chest, etc., etc. And he proclaims that he's a Jew. But if a white man was to go into the land of Ham right now, wouldn't they stick out like a sore thumb? Well, let's look at what happened with Joseph. So this is the book of Joseph, chapter 42, verse 1. It says, "Now when Jacob saw that there was corn in Egypt, Jacob said unto his son, Why do you look one another? And he said, Behold, I have heard that there is corn in Egypt. Get you down there and buy for us from there, that we may live and not die. And Joseph's 10 brothers went down to buy corn in Egypt. But Benjamin, Joseph's brother, Jacob sent not with his brethren, for he said, Lest peradventure mischief befall him. And the sons of Israel came to buy corn among those that came, for the famine was in the land of Canaan. And Joseph was the governor over the land, and he it was that sold to all the people of the land." So I'm gonna just give y'all context. Basically, there was a drought in the land of Canaan that Jacob and his other 11 sons had to travel to Egypt in order to get food to provide for their family. Now, you brothers obviously understand the story of Joseph, how he was in prison when he came unto Egypt, but essentially the Most High looked out for him, and he got promoted to be the second in command behind the Pharaoh of Egypt. He became the prince of Egypt, right? Now, continuing on, right? Now, verse 6, it says, "Joseph was a governor over the land, and he it was that sold to all the people of the land. And Joseph's brethren came and bowed down themselves before him with their faces to the earth." So Judah, Issachar, Naphtali, Asher, all the brothers, they came unto Jacob's presence and bowed down before him, right? In verse 7, it says, "And Joseph saw his brethren, and he knew them, but he made himself strange unto them, and spoke roughly unto them. And he said unto them, Where come ye? And they said, From the land of Canaan to buy food. And Joseph knew his brethren, but they knew him not." So when you look at that, right? How is it that Joseph and his brethren are in the land of Egypt, a land that's predominantly so-called black, right? Dark-skinned people. If the Jews were of a lighter skin tone, when Joseph came when his brothers saw Joseph in the land of Egypt, he would have stuck out like a sore thumb. Like me and a brother, we went to a tavern, we went to a bar, and we was the only 2 niggas in there. It was nothing but so-called white people, Edomites, right? So we stuck out like a sore thumb, you know what I mean? But essentially, why is it that Joseph, who was the prince, the brethren couldn't look at him? You telling me that the skin pigmentation was so deep, but they were so blind they couldn't tell the difference? What actually happened is that Joseph was of a darker complexion, so he was able to blend in amongst the Egyptians that his other dark-skinned brethren couldn't tell who it was, right? But I guarantee you, if y'all brothers were to Google search Joseph, it would be a so-called white man. You were to Google Abraham, it would be a so-called white man. So again, the cat's getting out the bag. But just so y'all brothers understand, let's get a little bit deeper into that, right? Because that's just the book of Genesis. Now let's go to the book of Exodus in regards to the account of Noah. Because I don't know if y'all brothers are aware of what happened in the time of Noah. I mean, not Noah, Salakia, Moses. But Moses, essentially, he was preserved from being killed by the Egyptian Pharaoh. I'm going to read it real quick. That way y'all brothers understand it.
I got one question. I
Hey,
like what y'all doing right now.
Hey, what's going on?
I really love what y'all doing. We woke up now. We're Israelites.
Yes, sir.
We woke up now. We understand.
Yes, sir.
And I put that on everything. I'm not saying Kanye, but we feel y'all been teaching the right shit.
Yes,
we
sir.
understand now.
Yes, sir.
But we got to teach these kids.
Yeah, we got to go out and teach the community.
Teach these kids.
Yep.
These murders that's happening.
The murders, stealing.
If we don't reach the community, fuck.
Yep.
Your message can get across all it wants to.
Yep.
The main point is black on black killing. If
Right.
we don't stop that, then we ain't going nowhere.
We got to talk to our own people and let them know where they're going wrong at.
When the killing happened, just like how we told them 200 G for Kyrie, we told 200 G for that boy's mama who just got killed.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying.
We gotta
But you also gotta understand this.
Yeah.
You gotta tell your people of their wrongdoing. But if they choose to not follow after the ways of the Bible, then at the end of the day, that's on hard times. You know what I mean?
All y'all want to be gangsters? Fuck all y'all.
Yeah, cut them off. If they want to be degenerates, they not a part of it. Yep. Yep. All right, my brother. Hey, be good. All right. Hey, it's one of the brothers stopped by, and he understands about the understanding of the Israelites to a certain extent. I don't know the brother; he just pulled up. But anyways, getting back into it, let's go into the account of Exodus and see exactly the appearance of Moses, right? So that way you can Moses, who was a Jew, right, from the tribe of Levi. Let's see what his appearance was, right? This is Exodus chapter 1 and verse 15. It says, "And the king of Egypt spoke unto the Hebrew midwives, of which the name of one was Shiphrah, and the name of the other Puah. And he said, when you do the office of a midwife to the Hebrew woman and see them upon the stools, if it be a son, then you shall kill him." So making context, because the Hebrews were growing in prominence, because their numbers was growing, because at the end of the day, we are the Most High's nation. So if we're in the land of our captivity, they're going to do everything in their power to strip us of our strength. Why do you think they put fluoride in the water? Why do you think they put drugs in the hood community? Why do you think they have a lot of these violent songs about killing on killing? And it's predominantly our communities, because that's how they have to weaken us and keep us at a lower state. Those are the devices of Satan. Those are the machinations of the dark powers of this world. But continuing on, so back in Egypt, the Pharaoh put out a decree and an order to kill all the male babies of the nation of Egypt. Of the nation of Israel, of the Hebrews, right? Now I'm gonna continue on though. Let's go to verse 17. "But the midwives feared the Lord and did not as the king of Egypt commanded them, but saved the men children alive. And the king of Egypt called for the midwives and said unto them, Why have you done this thing and saved the children alive? And the midwives said unto Pharaoh, Because the Hebrew women are not as the Egyptian women, for they are lively and are delivered ere the midwives come in unto them. Therefore the Most High dealt with the midwives, and the people multiplied and waxed very mighty." So essentially, the Hebrew women who were ordered to give up their male babies to kill them, they weren't willing to do that. They were standing tall for their nation, and the Most High was protecting them. That was divine intervention. Now let's go down to Exodus chapter 2 verse 1 in regard to Moses, right? "And there was a man of the house of Levi, and took to wife a daughter of Levi. And the woman conceived and bare a son. And when she saw him that he was a goodly child, she hid him 3 months." Now, why did this woman hide her child? Because her child was obviously a male Israelite, an Israelite boy, right? Verse 3, it says, "And when she could no longer hide him, she took for him an ark of bulrushes and daubed it with slime and with pitch and put the child therein. And she laid it in the flags by the river's brinks. And his sister stood afar off to wit what would be done to him. And the daughter of Pharaoh came down to wash herself at the river, and her maidens walked along by the riverside. And when she saw the ark among the flags, she sent her maid to fetch it. And when she had opened it, she saw the child, and behold, the babe wept. And she had compassion and said, This is one of the Hebrew children." So essentially, the Pharaoh's daughter and her handmaidens, her servants, saw that there was a child floating in the creek, and whatever was woven for him to, for Moses's mom to protect him from drowning in the river, correct? Now I'm continue on. Verse 7. It says, "Then said his sister to Pharaoh's daughter, Shall I go and call thee to a nurse of the Hebrew woman, that she may nurse the child for thee? And Pharaoh's daughter said to her, Go. And the maid went and called the child's mother. And Pharaoh's daughter said unto her, Take this child away and nurse it for me, and I will give thee thy wages. And the woman took the child and nursed it." So essentially, Pharaoh's daughter took Moses, the small boy, and allowed him to grow into, a bigger man. The reason why is because obviously the Hebrew boys were essentially being persecuted, and there was a order on their head from the Pharaoh to kill any male boys. Now again, we got to ask ourselves a question. Moses, according to conventional history, is so-called white, right? And the people in the land of Ham, the land of Egypt at that time, were so-called black, right? So again, if a baby looked like this and the people of the land looked like this, you don't think that the Pharaoh would have been able to tell that that was a Hebrew boy? You don't think that would have been able to happen? Of course not, bro. The reason why he was able to blend in amongst the people is because, again, they were darker skinned people. The same way in modern times, how you got a lot of people from Africa who are Hamites, and you got a lot of people not only in Africa, but also in America who are Shemites, who proclaim to be so-called black. They mix their culture in because they think that they're the same, but to be quite honest with you, they're completely different. When these people try to sit here and say that all so-called black people come from the land of Ham, that's a way to manipulate you and deceive you, compared to you understanding that many of the people in the time of Noah, in fact, the vast majority of people in the time of Noah were of a quote-unquote melanated color. It helps you understand that not all so-called black people are of the same lineage, but that in fact, there are so-called dark-skinned people, black, quote-unquote black people, who are of the lineage of the chosen, the Most High Yahawah, Bahasham Yahawashi. I gave y'all 2 accounts in Genesis of people who proclaimed that the Israelites were so-called white, but this is showing you, according to the context, that they blended in with a people of darker people. So what does that tell you? That tells you that the actual Israelites, according to the Bible, where you could quote-unquote call them so-called black, so-called Negro. You see what I'm saying? Predominantly in that time as a nation, right? And just so you kind of get an understanding, let's go to the book of Psalms chapter 78. Because a lot of times when you do your history and you got to understand what the Bible is talking about, you got to look back and see the meaning of words. So this is Psalms chapter 78, verse 50. It says, "The Most High made a way to his anger, and he spared not their soul from death, but gave their life over to pestilence." Speaking about when he plagued Egypt with different plagues, right? Verse 51, it says, "And smote all the firstborn in Egypt, the chief of their strength in the tabernacles of Ham." So when y'all understand the curses that the Most High placed upon Israel, he slayed the firstborn of every family of the nation of Egypt, right? Continuing on, and he said, "The tabernacles of Ham," the dwelling places, the houses of Ham. Verse 52, "But made his own people to go forth like sheep, and guided them in the wilderness like a flock." So when you understand the story of Moses, the Most High said that they came out of the land of Ham. Now, if we were to go to the book of Genesis, correct? And we were to look at the seed line, that's why when they say you're anti-Semitic, you got to do some actual research. If you're somebody who falls for that anti-Semite bullshit narrative, it means that you're ignorant and you're not studying and you're not prudent. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, everything in the dark shall come into the light. The true meaning of Semite is literally on the Bible. It's a quick Google search away. But if you like to be ignorant, if you like to continue believing lies, you're never going to look these things up. And by the time you try to actually seek it when things get bad, the famine of the word going to come. You see what I'm saying? So getting back into Genesis chapter 10, and we'll go to verse 1. It says, "Now these are the generations of the sons of Noah, Shem, aka what people call Sem or Semitic, Ham, and Japheth." Now going back to verse 6, it says, "And the sons of Ham," right? Cush, Mizraim, and Phut, and Canaan. Now the Canaanites settled in what people call today modern day Israel. It was the land of Canaan given unto the descendants of Abraham through Isaac through Jacob, right? But you also have the Hamites. When you look up the definition of Ham, Ham is just a Hebrew word for the translation of Kim. So the land of Kim is the land of Ham, the Kemetic peoples. And the sons of Ham was Cush. You have the Cushites who dwelled in Upper Egypt, which was further south on the Nile River. Then when you look this up, you got Mizraim, which was also a son of Ham. He dwelled in the land of Lower Egypt, which is modern day Cairo, where you have the Nile Delta. You also have Phut, and if you do some research, it doesn't specify, but he was also in that same land. So the land of Ham, where the modern day countries of what you have Egypt, Sudan, parts of Ethiopia, Somalia, parts of Eritrea, parts of Ethiopia, that is the land of Ham, right? And the land of Canaan was the Israelites. So essentially the Most High led us out of a land of darker skinned people, which we were actually able to blend into, though we had different characteristics, showing you that if the so-called white man was an actual Israelite, there would be a huge difference in his appearance. But that shows you and that proves to you that the so-called white man is not the actual Israelite of the Bible. They're not actual Jews. And if you actually read the Bible and have somebody break it down for you, and the Most High shows you through his spirit what it's actually telling you, you'll be able to decipher the falsehood from the truth. And that's my job today, just to help enlighten brothers on what it, especially if you new. Again, for y'all brothers who've been in this thing for a while, y'all kind of already understand this. You might listen to this to polish your knowledge and better be able to understand how to break these things down. But if you're new and you really don't understand who the Israelites are, you going back and forth, you seeing these rabbis talking about, oh, the black Hebrew Israelites they're imposters or Hamites. This is going to show you who the actual chosen are, according to what the Bible states that the vast majority of their appearance would be. Now, getting into that account with King David, because again, if y'all look up what did King David look like, what did his ruddiness look like, what you get in modern translation is that he was so-called had white pale skin with red spots. You know how sometimes people will, like a so-called white man will get nervous and his skin will turn red, or he'll have like a rash and his skin will have little red pigments. He might have like chicken pox or something. That's what they define as ruddy. But again, what does Job chapter 9 verse 24 says? The wicked will cover the face of the judges. So that way you will not be able to understand the appearance of what the judges actually were. The same way that they whitewash the image of quote unquote Jesus Christ, right? So let's go to the book of Salaki. Let me look up the verse. 1 Samuel chapter 16, and we'll go to verse 11, right? So it says, and Samuel said unto Jesse, are here all your children? And he said, there remaineth the youngest, and behold, he keepeth the sheep. And Samuel said unto Jesse, send and fetch him, for we will not sit down till he come here. And he sent and brought him in. Now he was ruddy, and withal of a beauty countenance, and goodly to look to. And Yahawah said, arise and anoint him, for this is he. Then Samuel took the horn of oil and anointed him in the midst of his brethren, and the spirit of Yahawah came upon David from that day forward. So Samuel rose up and went to Ramah. And this is speaking of the account about how the prophet Samuel came to anoint David as the king of Israel, right? Now, one of the key aspects of David's countenance is that he had a goodly appearance and that he had the appearance of being ruddy. Now, when you look up the definition of ruddy, according to Google, they say that that's having white skin with red spots. But if you were to actually look up ruddy, it's actually talking about a reddish brown. You can almost look at my complexion. Now, I'm predominantly brown, but you can see that I have certain aspects of red. But a good way to look at it, and shout out to the brother Apex, is you can look up Detroit Red. You can look up Malcolm X Detroit Red. Malcolm X had red. He had a very ruddy or red countenance. He had red hair. You know, he had kind of like a red gingery hair. That is the appearance of what King David looked like. Because again, if Joseph was a son of Israel and he could blend in with dark-skinned people, he was dark-skinned. If Moses could grow up in the land of Egypt and be indistinguishable from the Hamites, he was so-called dark-skinned. Well, the time of David to the time of Moses is only within 400 years. So you're telling me within a 400-year period that a so-called black man could appear and his whole nation of people could appear as a Caucasian man? That's a lie. What they're actually I'm trying to show you is that King David was actually a so-called black man, a ruddy black man, very similar to my complexion, but more so to Malcolm X, right? If y'all look up what Malcolm X looks like. And when you actually do some research, you'll notice that in the 1800s, a ruddy man and that definition for ruddy was completely different than what it is today. But again, what they had to do is whitewash history, conceal many things, because they understood that the Israelites were the true chosen people, and they had to hide this information from them and wipe away their remembrance of who they were as a people. And this is just me talking about three verses. Anybody who's listening and really, analyzing the things I'm saying, it makes perfect sense. But I'm gonna keep going. Because again, I want y'all brothers to have no stone unturned. I want y'all to have no stronghold about who the Israelites are according to what the Bible, that the literal Bible tells you that they look like, right? Now let's go to the book of Song of Solomon, and we'll go to chapter 1. And this is a famous verse that many people will bring out. So if y'all brothers turn to the Song of Solomon chapter 1, and you go to verse 5. Now, many people will say that this term has two meanings, but we'll break down both of them, right? So this is Song of Solomon 1 and 5. It says, I am black, but comely, O you daughters of Jerusalem, as the tents of cedar, as the curtains of Solomon. Look not upon me because I am black, because the sun had looked upon me. My mother's children were angry with me. They made me the keeper of the vineyard, but my own vineyard have I not kept. So essentially, this is a poem written from Solomon in regards to the viewpoint of a woman of the city of Shulam. She's a Shulamite, which is a city in the nation of Israel at that time, who essentially was writing a letter to Solomon. But it was actually parabolic, and it was actually talking about the relationship of Israel with the Most High and the relationship of Israel with Yahawashi HaMashiach, right? But I want to get into the aspect she says, I am black but comely. Now, if you were to look up in the lexicon or go on the BLB and search up that term black, if you were to scroll down, I want to say to the 3rd or the 4th section, it'll say black equals swarthy. Now, if y'all brothers look at the definition of swarthy, it says dark skin. Have you brothers ever heard a so-called white person refer to themselves as a dark-skinned man? Have you ever seen a dark-skinned white person? Or when people say I'm dark-skinned, I'm light-skinned, what group of people is that talking about? So-called black people. Now you also got Hamites people of Africa who say the same thing. But again, I'm trying to get into your mind that the people who proclaim to be Jews, their appearance and their heritage doesn't line up with what the Bible is saying. Because at the end of the day, the woman who Solomon was speaking about, she says, I am black but comely. I am swarthy but comely. Swarthy means dark skin, right? So many of the people of Israel proclaim themselves to be swarthy or dark skinned. You can actually look up a book by Benjamin Franklin. I forgot what it's called, but he's talking about the newcomers of the earth in that time of the 1700s. And he spoke about how the appearance of many of the people on the earth was swarthy or tawny. Tawny being a more lighter skin, swarthy being a more darker skin, right? Swarthy, like kind of like a LeBron James color. Not Kendrick Lamar. Kendrick Lamar's kind of light, but y'all brothers understand what I'm talking about, right? But if you don't even want to say that that's talking about her saying I'm black, if you look at the definition where it says I am black but comely, many people will say that her skin was black from being in the sun all day. Now, if you also were to look at a Caucasian man, right, a so-called fake Jew, right, you were to look at their complexion when they're in the sun all day, what happens to their skin? Their skin turns red. Their skin starts to peel. But if you put a so-called black man in the sun, you be like, damn, bro. Like I got a friend, my old friend in high school named Amir. He'll be in the sun all day. We call that man purple. You know what I'm saying? We say, oh, bro, you look purple. Many of the dark-skinned people, they say, oh, damn, you so dark, you look purple, right? Because when you're in the sun, you quote-unquote get burnt up. Think about it when y'all talk to y'all people, you're like, damn, I'm in the sun all day, I'm getting burnt up. I'm getting black. I'm getting blacker than black. So even if you want to do either definition of the word black, whether it be of a darker skin or your skin is being burnt, regardless, a so-called white man could not fit that description. A so-called white woman could not fit that description. Now, when you start to see the context of what the people of the Bible actually look like, then you can go into the context of Daniel, because these are 3 accounts of many men that people agree were Israelites and what their appearance is. Again, the Most High does not change. Malachi 3:6, I am Yahawah, I change not. So the same people that was being spoken about in the book of Genesis, the same context is going to be all the way through to the book of Revelation, which we're going to prove. Now let's go to the book of Daniel real quick, because there's actually an account of what the Most High, the Heavenly Father, would look like if you understand one of his titles. Because you got the Most High, his actual name is Yahawah, but he has the Almighty, the Most High, the power, right? Quote unquote God, right? The highest of all, you know, the God of all gods, etc., right? So let's go to the book of Daniel, and we'll go to chapter 7, verse 9. It says, I beheld till the thrones were cast down, and the Ancient of Days did sit. And that's another nickname for the Most High, the Ancient of Days, whose garment was white as snow. Well, it's like, I read verse 8. It says, I considered the horns, and behold, there came among them another little horn, before whom there were 3 of the first horns, plucked by the root, and behold, in this horn were eyes like the eyes of a man, and a mouth speaking great things. And that's speaking about the beast, one of the civilizations in the end times, right? Now let's go to verse 9. It says, I beheld till the thrones were cast down, and the Ancient of Days did sit. Why? Because on Judgment Day, the Most High is going to come, and he's going to cast judgment upon all the people of earth through Yahawashi, through his holy archangels, etc., right? But continuing on, it says, whose garment was white as snow, and the hair of his head like pure wool. So it describes his hair as being pure wool. His throne was like the fiery flame, and his wheels as burning fire. A fiery stream issued and came forth before him. Thousands upon thousands ministered unto him, and 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him. The judgment was set and the books were open. And that has to be talking about the Most High, because the Most High is the one who understands the judgment of all the people of the earth. And you will have to stand before him on Judgment Day, right? Now the scriptures speak that his hair was pure like wool. meaning that his appearance, his hair was white like an older man, because it shows his wisdom and his understanding, because the Most High knoweth all things, right? He created all things, but also how his hair had the texture of wool. Now, again, this is the image of the Most High, and that's talking about his hair. But what did Yahawashi say, I think it was to Thomas, about his appearance? Because remember when Thomas asked Yahawashi if he could see the Father, what did Yahawashi say? Let's go to the book of John, chapter 14. Slacky. And we'll go to verse 9. I'll read verse 8. It says, Philip said unto him, Lord, show us the Father, and it sufficeth us. Verse 9, Yahawashi said, have I been so long time with you, and yet have you not known me, Philip? He that hath seen me hath seen the Father. And how saith you then, show us the Father? Believeth you not that I am in the Father, and the Father in me? The words that I speak unto you, I speak not of myself, but the Father that dwelleth in me, he doeth the works. So basically what Yahawashi said, whoever has seen me in the flesh, you have seen the image of the Father, because more often than not, the image of your son comes back to the Father, like me. None of y'all have ever seen my dad, unless I showed y'all a picture. He's not here no more. But essentially, most people say I look just like my father, right? You know, so essentially, if you see me, more often than not, you've seen what my father looked like, even though you haven't seen my father, right? Well, that's what Yahawashi said, because no man has actually seen and spoken to the Most High face to face. The only people who are able to be in the presence of the Most High are spirits, whether it be on the left-hand side, the angels, or the right-hand side, the wicked spirits that the Most High has created for judgment and wrath and vengeance. And the only person who's been on the earth in the flesh, who's come in the flesh, who has seen the Father, has been his son, Yahawashi, because he sits at his right hand. So Yahawashi let Philip know that if you seen me, then you seen my Father in heaven. So when you understand that the Most High, he has the image of white woolly hair, and you go to what the image of Christ is according to the Bible, well, let's get it real quick. It's Revelation chapter 1, verse 14. It says his head and his hair were white like wool, as white as snow, and his eyes were as a flame of fire, and his feet like unto fine brass. Have you ever seen brass that look white or Caucasian or yellow? Brass has always been the color of brown. So what John the Revelator was telling you is that Christ was the image of a dark-skinned man with woolly hair. Now, if you look at me on my camera, I have woolly hair and I have copper-colored skin, showing you that Christ is a so-called black man. And if Christ is the image of his Father, then that means that the Heavenly Father looks like a quote-unquote so-called black man, right? Same thing with David, same thing with Moses, same thing with Joseph. And if you don't believe me, there's another account that John the Revelator also said in the book of Revelation. And this is the book of Revelation chapter 4, verse 1. It says, after this I looked, and behold, a door was open in heaven. And the first voice which I heard was as it were a trumpet talking with me, which said, come up here, and I will show thee things which must be hereafter. And immediately I was in the spirit, and behold, a throne was set in heaven, and one sat on the throne, speaking about Yahawah, because he sits on his throne in the heavens, in the third heaven. Verse 3, and he that sat was to look upon like a jasper and a sardine stone. That's a simile, because he's describing the image of the Most High, similar to a sardine and a jasper stone. Now, if y'all just literally Google on your phone what a jasper stone looks like, it's a brownish colored stone. If you were to Google what a sardine stone looks like, it's kind of a brownish reddish stone, similar unto a ruby. So what John the Revelator is showing you is that the image of the Most High, he had an image likened unto a brownish red, similar to the image of King David. He was ruddy, he was a brownish red. Look at the Redskins logo, a red-skinned man. The Aboriginal man was so-called black, right? You see what I'm saying? So when you sit back and you actually prove who the people in the Bible actually are, they're actually so-called black people. And when you also, let's go to the book of Genesis, because what did Yahawah say, him and the angels, when he created man? This is Genesis chapter 1, verse 26. It says, and Yahawah said, let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth. So the Most High created man in his own image. In the image of the Most High created he him. So basically, the Most High, when he created man likened unto his own image. So you don't think that the Most High's chosen people are not going to look like him in appearance? Essentially, what I'm trying to explain to you and show you is that the Most High's chosen people the vast majority of them are so-called blacks. Now, we obviously understand throughout time, throughout history, throughout us being spread across the four corners of the earth, that many of our brothers and sisters who are of that royal seed had taken on the appearances of other nations. But at the principle of it, at the foundation of it, the vast majority of people who are considered Israelites, who are considered real Jews, are so-called black people, so-called Negroes. And if you believe in the Bible, and if you proclaim to believe in the Bible, you proclaim to believe in Christ, you call yourself a Christian, you're supposed to believe in the words of the Bible. But why do you believe in a false image? Why do you follow a church that promotes a false image? Because you rather believe in lies than understand and reveal the truth. But whoever's watching this video, listen to me right now, the reason why I wanted to break down why people call you a Hamite, why people say that the Israelites weren't so-called black, is because they want to keep you away from the proper understanding of the Bible. But like Yahawashi said, Christ said, he said, ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. Double meaning, because the Israelites are in spiritual bondage in a land not known unto them, where they would serve strangers and they would be oppressed. That's the state of the so-called black man. So once you understand who you actually are and what your actual history is, you can start to return unto the Most High. You can start to repent and seek after his ways. Repent and follow the Lamb wheresoever he go. Like Yahawashi, like Christ said, he said, the kingdom of heaven is in you, meaning you have everything that is needed in order for you to find salvation, because salvation is of Israel. Salvation is of the Jews. So Lord willing, this lesson was edifying. And Lord willing, if y'all brothers had any doubt on the understanding about who the Israelites were according to what the Bible says, now you know. So I want to give all praises to Yahawah, Bahasham, Yahawashi. Until next time, it's the brother Ash Ibai signing out.